From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, September the 22nd, 2020. The 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly opened today, for the first time held virtually because of the coronavirus pandemic. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres opened the first session today, addressing the COVID crisis and calling for a global ceasefire. He cited a number of regions in the world that show signs of heading in that direction, including, he said, in the Middle East, where he noted, with a period of relative calm in Gaza and annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank put aside, at least for the time being, I urge Israeli and Palestinian leaders to re-engage in meaningful negotiations that will realize a two-state solution in line with relevant UN resolutions, international law, and bilateral agreements. The mention of annexation being put aside seemed to be a reference to the recently signed Abraham Accords between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, though Guterres did not mention the agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the world body in a pre-recorded video message touching on a number of issues, including the Iran deal and the recent peace agreements between Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain, and said these groundbreaking peace deals are the dawn of a new Middle East, which he said were deals brokered by peace through strength, and that more countries would be following soon. Israel's newly appointed ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, who was among a few dozen socially distanced and masked ambassadors physically at the UN, welcomed the remarks from the president, tweeting, "The United States and Israel are forging a new path for peace in the Middle East. Thank you to President Trump for helping lead this new effort, proving that peace through strength is the right formula and that partnership with a strong Israel is good for the region." And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office shared that he spoke over the phone with the Crown Prince of Bahrain, Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa. The Prime Minister said it was an exceptional call, very friendly, saying, "We reiterated the principles of the Abraham Accords and we discussed how to turn this peace, an economic peace, a technological peace, a tourism peace, a peace in all of these areas, into action." And you will hear, Netanyahu said, about the practical steps very soon. Reuters reports that the U.S. and the UAE hope to come to an agreement on the sale of F-35 fighter jets to the Emirates by December the 2nd. As we reported to you, Israel's Defense Minister Benny Gantz is in Washington today to discuss this issue. Israel has expressed opposition to any such deal over concern it could harm its military edge in the region, something Congress is committed to maintaining. The Reuters report cites sources familiar with the negotiations who said that one way to work around that issue would be to provide Israel with the technology to detect any Emirati F-35s in the area. Honduras said it will move its embassy to Jerusalem this year, and Israel will open an embassy in the Honduran capital of Tegucigalpa. The announcement yesterday follows a telephone call between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez on Sunday. Netanyahu tweeted, "With their flags flying in the capitals of the two countries, Israel and Honduras declared their intention to complete the action plan before the end of the current year, with a mutual opening and inauguration of their embassies in the national capitals, Tegucigalpa and Jerusalem." Well, the Israeli-made super fast and super easy COVID test will be tested out at two airports in Europe. We had reported to you last month about the SpectraLit test, which has people gargling with a special mouthwash and then spitting into a tube that is tested for the virus. with very quick results. The test was developed by Israeli company Newsite together with Sheba Medical Center and will be implemented in 2 European airports by ICTS Europe, initially in a pilot program. That will be expanded if all goes well. In the initial phase, a passenger who tests positive for coronavirus from the gargle test will then be sent for a standard COVID-19 test. Newsite's Eli Asulin told the Times of Israel, "We think our solution is going to be the de facto solution for air travel." Among the many ways people are remembering and paying tribute to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one young man has made his respect for the beloved icon loud and clear. 11-year-old Micah Blay blew his shofar in front of the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington this weekend, performing the Rosh Hashanah ritual in front of some 250 people who arrived at the site to pay their respects. Micah's mother shared video of the special tribute on social media. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Tuesday, September the 22nd. At 7 o'clock, Shachar Azani speaks with Blue and White Knesset member Tehila Friedman, who talks about making her very first speech on the floor of the Knesset, calling for healing the fractures within Israeli society. At 8, a discussion of the threats on Israel's northern border with General Nitzan Nuriel, Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zehavi, and Professor Boaz Ganor with Becky Strapp at APAC 2020. At 9, it's part 2 of Mark Golub's L'chaim interview with Shai Held. At 10, Dr. Micah Goodman talks about the Jewish tradition's unique concept of time. And coming up next, it's the ILTV's Insider. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, September the 22nd, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy. Stay well.